Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, this meeting will be conducted via remote means. Members of the public who wish to watch or listen to the meeting may do so in the following manner. Video conference with login information on the agenda that is on the town website. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be available, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Topsfield website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Having said that, I'm delighted to call this meeting of the Planning Board on October 1st, 2025 to order. One more announcement. This meeting is being recorded via Zoom in the event that the communication is lost at any time during the meeting. The meeting is also being recorded by Topsfield Cable TV and will be available on the Topsfield website Cable Video On Demand page. Is there anyone else present who wishes to record the meeting? That said, no. Okay, great. Now we can get down to business. The first item is 30 Canterbury Hill. And I understand that we have a request to continue the public hearing, okay, for a stormwater management permit. Is that correct, Lynn?
Yes. The engineer asked for a continuance. He's still waiting for information concerning the drainage information for the retaining wall in the backyard.
Okay. Did I hear or see someone who wanted to comment on this? No? Okay.
Yeah, yes, actually. Hi.
Oh, hi, Peter.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. So, yeah, just a question. Is should there be construction going on while we're waiting for this to happen at the house at
Well,
30 Canterbury?
if it's building construction, it's fine.
Okay.
It's fine. And I do not know if the conscom reached any agreement about the wall. Does anyone know?
No, they did not.
There was a continuance for that as well. And one thing we were just concerned about at that we went to that meeting too, was we were hoping that the planning group would also be talking to Concom about this property because it's got
Recording in
conservation
progress.
issues.
I'm sorry,
So,
Peter, that was.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Lynn.
Headland.
Well,
Lynn?
I was just saying, I apologize. I forgot to hit the record button, so I did it in the middle of Peter speaking. So
Oh, okay.
I heard that. Sorry.
Well, Well, we have two different areas of jurisdiction. And we did say that we would wait before doing anything until the Conservation Commission came to some decision about the retaining wall and how they were going to treat the retaining wall that is now in the buffer zone. So we really can't do anything until we find out what they're doing with the retaining wall. And also, we need information about the retaining wall for our review engineer, who needs to know how the drainage is being handled at the retaining wall, in order to determine a stormwater permit. So we're kind of on hold until Conscom makes its decision to see if it affects us. And then we also need construction information about the retaining wall.
Stop.
Okay.
And I believe that the engineer is attempting to locate that information.
Okay.
But to the best of my knowledge, he doesn't have it yet. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's,
My wife wanted to ask a question too.
yes.
So my question is, if a retaining wall is the size that this retaining wall is, which is over 6 feet on the side, why is it not considered a permanent structure and therefore it would have a 15-foot setback? That's what the law says, the bylaw says in Topsfield, that it would have a 15-foot setback on the side property lines. And our house is only 13 feet from the property line. The wall is 4 feet from my property line. So it's basically, to us, seems like really serious encroachment. And I just don't understand why that would not be considered a permanent structure when, a shed is a permanent structure, and a shed could be moved a lot easier than this wall could be. I mean, if this wall was 15 feet back, then a drainage system could be appropriately put in. I just don't see how it could be at this point. It's right up against us, and the seriousness of damage to us once the ground is frozen is very real. And I'd like to know who's going to be responsible for all that damage if it does happen, if whatever system they come up with is not adequate.
Right. Well, I don't mean to be passing, the buck here, but the installation of the retaining wall and its, compliance with zoning requirements, density and dimensional requirements, is the responsibility of the building inspector. Now,
Yes.
he is supposed to be determining whether it is properly situated. But what has happened, of course, is that the wall is not built where they said it was going to be built, which is what
Right.
triggered the conscom issue, and that it may well trigger a building inspector, a zoning enforcement issue. But again, that's not our purview. Our only, responsibility here or jurisdiction here is stormwater management. And our stormwater engineer, once he finds out about the wall, is going to be able to determine what's going on with that wall and how it would affect stormwater, the flow of stormwater on the property.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, we did reach out to the building inspector all along the way. Um, Before the wall was even built and we saw how close it was and were concerned about it, we reached out and never got responses from him, ever, at least 4 or 5 times.
Mhm.
And so I don't know. It just, information that I've had to dig up on my own basically says here that a wall of that magnitude, it would fall under a permanent structure, and therefore that wall is not legal.
Well, would any other member of the board care to comment or
Yeah.
provide some information?
Well, I'll ask a question. Did you actually go down and try to see Ray in person?
Yes,
You
and
did.
I
Okay.
did see him after the fact, after, several attempts of contacting him by email,
Yeah.
and him basically saying it's the same as a fence. And to me, it's like, well, a fence could be moved in a day, and a fence isn't holding back all this new fill, and a fence hasn't changed the topography, because this property used to be lower than ours, and now it's 8 feet higher than ours. So how is that anything like a fence? It's nothing like a fence.
Okay. Well, anyone else? Silly, Jenny, Greg? Anyone?
I don't have much to offer, Martha. Sorry.
I, I'll ask a question. Oh, that's probably Greg's phone. When you spoke with Ray, because now I'm very curious as to is there a definition in the Commonwealth building codes that groups a retaining wall with a fence, or how does he come up with that association?
I have no idea.
Well, that would be a question for him. And in my limited dealings with him, first of all, I find him to be a very nice gentleman. And if you are patient with him, I know he's our one guy who's doing a lot and has a lot on his plate. So it does not surprise me that emails go unanswered. for long times. And that's why I've always tried to go down and corral him for a quick question. And that would be my question. I understand your point, but he obviously has a definition from somewhere that he's going by. I don't know what that is, but
Well,
No,
yeah,
nor do I. Um, uh,
well, that's
as I
been my
say,
question the whole time, and it never has been answered, and it would have been nice to have that answered and, um, you know, our concerns considered, uh, before the wall was actually constructed. And the owners even have said that. Why did you bring this up now? I brought this up at the beginning. We even met with the owners. And it's very frustrating because I don't think I've ever seen anything like this anywhere in Topsfield. I mean, people move to Topsfield to have, you know, some space between neighbors. It just seems like encroachment to me.
well, one issue that I've been asking, and it's because our engineer needs information about the wall and how the any drainage is being treated around the wall. There appears to be no construction design for the wall. Now, anything over 4 feet needs a building permit, and all that seems to have been filed is a sketch showing generally where the wall would go. And that was shown to the conservation agent, who has now retired, and she approved the location because it wasn't in the buffer zone. Well, now we discover that they have built a 6-foot wall in the buffer zone, and we don't have any drawings or any construction drawings to show how the wall was built. So that, I think, is a problem. We are trying to track that down from a stormwater point of view. And if we are successful, we'll happily share, that information. But uh, we, uh, Tom, do you have any insight into walls? You're
You're
muted.
on.
Yeah, I think that you're right, that any wall, over 4 feet requires a building permit. I don't know, each town can have their own definition too of what a permanent structure is. I can't answer, but I do know any wall over 4 feet requires a building permit prior to construction. And it needs to generally be signed off by a PE, a structural PE.
Yeah, well,
That's been my experience.
yeah. Well, to my knowledge, there is no drawing, there is no design. There's just a quote from a company that installed the wall, saying the specs. And so this is a bit of a problem, um, generally, from our point of view.
Right, understandable.
So anyway, well, thank you, Tom. I thought
No
you would, Tom is an engineer. He knows about these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Tom. And just one correction too, Martha. It's more like from the footing, it's more like an 8-foot to 9-foot wall.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
really is, in most of the wall is pretty high. So I think, it's pretty excessive, in light of the parameters that are permitted in this town.
Oh, the building, or at least the sketch and the specs, talk about a 6-foot wall. So if it's more than that, then it's even more out of sync, with what was planned.
Right.
So
Well,
I would recommend talking to Ray once again. And we don't know what Conscom's going to do about the wall.
Well, the last time I spoke with Ray about this issue, he said this is in the planning board's hands now. That's
Oh.
what he told me.
Okay. All right.
Martha?
Steve, you got something to say?
Yeah, I just did a quick little search. Apparently, this is covered in Commonwealth of Massachusetts Regulation 780, and it's extensive, so I have to read through it. But I am curious. But I think that's where he's coming up with his wall definition, his retaining wall
sense.
definition.
Right.
As
Well, Steve, if you could research that a little more and
I
perhaps
will.
to us, because well, this will be continued again tonight, so we
Right.
will have another bite at the apple, so to speak, at
Right.
the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else care to add anything?
I wish I had something better news for you guys.
Yeah, I know. No, this has been going on for quite a while.
Right.
All that's in our hands is the stormwater piece, the
Right.
all construction, it's, location, none of that. We have no jurisdiction over that.
Right.
Of course,
Yeah. It seems as if, there's a difference between obviously a stone wall or a wall dividing a property line to a structural retaining wall that is holding back a tremendous amount of fill, and that where the topography has been completely changed.
And mature trees, many mature trees taken away.
So
Yeah.
it's not the same thing I mean, I just can't see how that could possibly be seen as the same thing as just a wall or a fence that is not doing that.
Well, Steve is going to research what he has uncovered and
Okay.
hopefully will come with an answer. Okay, so we need a motion to continue this public hearing to what date, Lynn?
November 5th.
November 5th. Would someone care to make that motion?
So moved.
Okay, Zilly, is there a second? Don't
I'll
everyone?
second it.
You said, okay. We have to
Second.
do a roll call vote. Greg,
Aye.
Zilly,
Hi.
Jenny,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Okay, see you all on November 5th. Yeah, okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
welcome. Okay, now, Mr. Clerk, can you read the public hearing notice for 110 Raleigh Bridge Road?
I can. Notice is hereby given that the Topsfield Planning Board will hold a public hearing during a Zoom Planning Board meeting Wednesday, October 1st at 7 p.m. Instructions will be on the posted agenda on how to join the meeting via Zoom. To consider the application of Krista Margosian and Eric Arsenal for premises located at 110 to 112 Raleigh Bridge Road, Topsfield, requesting a special permit under Chapter 220 of the General Bylaws, Stormwater Management and Erosion Control.
Great, thank you, Steve. I see that David is here, yes, and
Yes, I'm representing the family, and we have our engineer, Tom Mineta, on the call, as well as our builder, Todd Maines, on the call.
wonderful. Well, welcome all. I think you'll be happy to learn. Lynn, would you like to read what our engineer said?
Oh, I actually don't have the actual email in front of me, but he did recommend approval of the stormwater permit. He said it looks really good, the plan.
Right, and we're very happy for you, that, things certainly will go. Just so everyone understands, we used to have a system where people would go to the Conservation Commission and the Board of Health and Stormwater and the Historical Commission if they needed them to kind of check off all the boxes. And so then when they get going on their building permit and start work, everything is all done. Somehow or another, things have become a little bit, mixed up of late. And what's happening, and it happened to you, you start your work and you get going and everything seems to be going well, and then someone says, hello, you don't have a this or you don't have a that. So we apologize for that, but we thank you for getting a plan to us, and our engineer said it's great. All
And
set.
Tom Mineta is here tonight if you'd like a quick overview of the stormwater plan.
Tom?
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer any questions or, give you a quick rundown of what we've done to mitigate any of the increased runoff. We've created a infiltration trench along the edge of the new driveway. There's a proposed driveway going to the addition. So to mitigate the additional runoff, you see it on the easterly side of that driveway, there is a 3-foot wide infiltration trench to accept that. And then the building itself, the building construction, the additional impervious area created by the roof and the deck, that's directed into some Cultec chambers, subsurface. There's 8 chambers there. So the gutter system will be piped into the infiltration system, the subsurface infiltration system. So what we've done is we've mitigated any increased flow on the 2, 10, and 100-year storm events for this property.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
No problem.
And it's very nice. I drive by the site periodically. It's down the way from me, and I see you're making progress, and that's great. Okay, anyone have any questions? Any comments? Members of the board?
Nothing from me.
Nothing? Okay. Well, anyone else?
Nope.
Okay, wonderful. Very easy. Okay, we need a motion to approve a stormwater permit.
Madam,
Stormwater,
you want to
we
close
have to
the?
close the public hearing. Thank you, Lynn. Yes.
Mhm.
Would someone make a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a
So
motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Greg. And who would second it? Steve is
Seconded.
seconding. All right, roll call. Jenny,
Aye.
Zilly,
Hi.
Steve,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Now, would someone make a motion to approve the stormwater permit based on the plan that we have just seen?
So moved.
Okay, Jenny is a second. Zilly seconds. Roll call. Jenny,
Aye.
Zilly,
Hi.
Steve,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
aye. Okay, very good. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Good
Lynn.
luck with
Thank
your
you.
project. And as I say, I can't wait to see the finished product.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, good night. Okay, now come rules and regulations. And I've got to congratulate Lynn. She has worked so hard on this. And has made it so much clearer. I mean, we've been through this over time, a few times, and what Lynn discovered in the way of inconsistencies and how to solve them is just wonderful. So, Lynn, do you want to lead us in this discussion?
Sure. I guess I would start with the summary that we put together. Did anyone have any questions or comments or changes on those high level things to modify, remove, add, or make consistent?
I do not have anything. Isn't that odd? Thank you.
That's thrilling, Steve. I love that. I did put the all of these changes into the documents so they're redlined. And they don't look as scary when you actually see them redlined because
Yeah,
the documents
for
are so
sure.
large. So that was one thing, which is great. Okay, if that's all approved. The next was new language to go into the documents. The first was, as Martha had suggested, some language so that road easements could be obtained earlier on in the process in subdivision control than at the very end with the as-built. That way, if a developer goes out of business or something happens, you're not chasing down easements or eminent domain in order to get the deed that you need to get the town to accept the street at the town meeting. So if everyone is comfortable with the concept of putting that in, we can ask KP to just show us exactly where that should go and what the language is.
The question is whether it's even legal to do that. And I think Jenny was about to maybe say something about it. The concept arose out of two things. That first, all easements, utility easements and drainage easements and all of that get filed as Salem deeds, right away. And so they're already legal. When we did Hickory Beach, we got the deed for the open space area ahead of time. and it's conditioned on street acceptance. So the idea is that at the point of street acceptance, that deed would become live and the town would get the open space. Well, it sounded like a great idea, but we didn't get to street acceptance because the company went out of business and there's no one to sign the easement or the deed. So the question was whether there's some way of saying in the subdivision control street acceptance section that an easement or a deed for the right of way, for the roadways would be drawn up and contingent upon and dependent upon the as-built plan, because that's what's required. You have to have an as-built and a deed in order to accept the street. So if the deed were in place, we always hold out significant funds to do an as-built in case the developer goes out of business before they even do the as-built, which has happened in a number of subdivisions, earlier subdivisions. So we have been holding back enough money, and for Hickory Beach, we had the money to have the as-built prepared. So we have an as-built, but we don't have a deed or an easement. So had we had a deed that somehow or another referenced an as-built that would be accomplished at the end. I just don't know how legal this is or how it can be made legal. It's odd, let's put it this way.
It is odd.
Yeah,
Yeah, because you can't reference something that doesn't exist.
okay.
Can you indicate it as an intent based on an intentional build to be revisited and augmented or modified when as-builts are available? Is that a possibility?
I mean, once you have property rights, and I mean, unless it's a temporary easement that expires at some point, right?
Perhaps it expires, an easement exists and expires once as-built are accepted. And then the as-built are become the defining document. Does that sound?
But then you need a new easement.
Right. You see, this is part of the problem, that it would be a great way, to avoid what's happened in the past.
Yeah.
And I just don't know, um, I'm kind of struggling with it, as to, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not sure, but it is odd.
It's odd and it is difficult and we're not unique. I mean, I would present the problem to KP and find out what creative solutions they have.
That's what we're
Yeah, but yeah, it is difficult because what you want to do is you want them to retain ownership of the road and not just give it to not just have it be owned by the homeowners, right? Because otherwise that's a headache to acquire property from all of the homeowners. But then they're in the same boat where if they go out of business before the road is done, they've got an unfinished road with no rights to it because
Right.
it's its own lot.
Well, as I say, we always hold out enough money to complete all the infrastructure, if need be. If they go out of
Right.
business early in the project, then we've got the money to finish the roads and the storm drain, the drains and anything that needs to be done. And we hold out enough money for an as-built plan. So, even if they started a project and then went bust fairly early on when they've, torn up the whole area and then haven't done anything, we can step in and we have the funds secured so that we can finish the project. But as I say, it's Hickory Beach is not unique. I mean, that there are other older subdivisions that don't even they don't have as-built at all. So trying to get those streets accepted, is a real problem.
I wonder if there's a way to, require them to draft a deed that we hold in escrow.
Well,
You know?
that's sort of what we're doing with the open space deed.
Yeah.
It's in
The
the,
problem is, and then it becomes a title nightmare for everybody who owns property that abuts that, because you're creating a deed to a property that's on paper, and what they've done with those lots that are on the road may be different, and you can have a difference of a few feet, and then you end up having, I don't know if you've ever looked at the lot lines of all the houses where I live on Perkins Row, but
oh, yeah,
they do not resemble what is on paper,
right.
and we're all just like, okay.
Well, it's the same on Raleigh Bridge Road. It's the same on all of the old roads in town.
Yeah.
And in many efforts to try and sort out the streets and that sort of thing, we can't use the GIS maps because the paving is not necessarily in the right of way.
Exactly. Yeah. And parts of houses are not necessarily within their own lot.
That's right. Exactly. And some of them are actually in the right of way.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was the one really outstanding piece of subdivision control. The rest of it in subdivision control is, updating all the forms. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lynn, but is updating all the forms, the distribution requirements, that sort of thing. Making sure that, all of the departments and the commissions that don't exist anymore are removed and the proper ones are put in. So it's really, sort of editorial housekeeping for most of it. But that deed thing was the one substantive issue.
Mhm. Yeah.
So when I sent the red lines over to KP, I explained the situation and I said, you were going to be discussing it tonight. And if in concept, everybody agreed this is a good thing to do, could they let us know if it's legal and how would you word it? So that's supposed to come back to us on October 10th, all of the input. So by the time you have your joint meeting with the ZBA on the 28th of this month, you would have well in advance gotten KP's advice as to if you can do this and how.
Right.
Okay. There's
Okay.
one small typo on the Article 4 one that maybe KP will notice, but just at
What was that, Jenny? Was the
I'm looking
typo?
for it. 4.11.1. You've added a bit, shall be distributed immediately. I think we need to. Oh no, wait, that wasn't it. There's somewhere. Maybe it wasn't that one. There's somewhere in one of these documents we're like missing a 2. I thought maybe I
Two?
missed.
The word
Yeah.
TO?
Yeah, but
Okay.
actually it's not there because I can see it there.
Okay. I'll take a look and they'll probably catch it as well.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
they're scanning.
It was not substantive.
Okay. Okay, the next new language was that septic plans would be required to be attached to any stormwater permit application. Because the stormwater plan changes based upon where the septic is. If the Board of Health decided it needed to change location, then a new stormwater plan would need to be submitted, and it's just extra work, which leads to the discussion we'll have in a minute about the fees for stormwater. But so that was, if everyone's okay with that language went in. And then this was, you had discussed before, changing the scenic road special permit to just being a permit so that you don't need super majorities to vote. So with that language, if that's approved in the rules and regulations, I believe, and Jenny, correct me if I'm wrong, it would need to go to town meeting first to change in the bylaw. And then the rules and
No,
regs could
so it's inconsistent with the bylaw the way it reads right now.
Okay.
So
The
there was
bylaw-
one there's one thing that we have that is a special permit, and then there's the stormwater is not a special permit.
Yeah, so that this is the scenic road I'm talking
Oh, the
about.
scenic road. Okay. Yes, then that would need to go to town meeting. But I wanted to just make sure that we weren't calling something a special permit that wasn't already one.
Right.
Yeah, so the language for stormwater, you're right, we changed just to permit, and that was
Got it.
consistent bylaw. This one, we'll have it in the rules and regulations ready to go after it's approved at town meeting. And then the regs can be updated to say it's just a permit. Okay, and then the last item was the fees. A couple of things. First, the fee schedule was last updated in 2006. So it was updated 19 years ago. So since then, costs have gone up a little bit. And so taking a look at what it costs us versus what we're bringing in, the recommendation is to raise the base application fee by $25, which is really not much when you're considering that most people are doing tens of thousands of dollars worth of work on their home, and it's only a $25 bump up in the base application fee. That was one, and we can talk about that in a minute. The other was inconsistencies between the ZBA and planning board site plan review application cost. So for planning board, you guys have a formula and you base it on coverage fee, the total square footage of altered building footprints, and gross floor area. And you add those up together and you get usually an average of $140. That's what your fee is. I think the intent originally was to have a base application fee of $200. That's what it costs to come before you for anything. And then add in this coverage and gross floor area because it gets more complicated. So first we'd want to make sure that it had your base application fee in the wording. And then there's this formula. The ZBA, on the other hand, has a base $200 application. And then if your site plan review, an additional $200. So theirs is always $400. Yours is a floater, depending on how much land is being altered. So since all your other fees are very much aligned, it makes sense to have both boards have the same fee structure for site plan review. That's what we're putting out here for discussion tonight.
Didn't the ZBA say, joke that, oh, well, their site plan review was worth more than our site plan review? You know?
Yes, they did.
Yeah. You know, sort of joking around. But it's these kinds of inconsistencies, and where applicants get confused. You know, they don't know what it is that they're supposed to be writing checks for, and so. And to see that two different boards have different fees for the same service seems a little bit silly. So that we should we should have the same fee schedule, I think.
It also gets complicated for the town clerk because she's the one that receives the application and the check. And so she never knows what the fee should be for stormwater or for site plan review because she's not that versed in the formulas, nor does she have the plan to say, well, that's not the gross, square floor area. She's not going to question them. So once the check has come in, if I look at it and say, oh my gosh, that's not even right, she would have to go back, give them the check, get another check. If there's a flat amount, it's just a lot cleaner and easier for her to accept at the time the application comes in.
Yeah. And we've seen many, many times when actual construction does not resemble nearly what the plans were that were submitted. So I agree. The fee should be consistent. I think it should be a set fee, but I think we should do the zoning board better. And so we should also ask for a case of bourbon to accompany these meetings. But I guess we really shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
So
As payment, not a gift though, Steve, as payment.
Yeah.
Time comes.
No, but I concur. It needs to be simpler for someone like me reading an application. And if it's just consistent across all boards and across the town, boy, does that make it a lot more inviting and just reduces the stress, I think.
I'm
And
in
also-
agreement with what Steve has laid out. I like consistency and making sure that the administrative team is not confused. So that's a great approach. I would go with the ZBA model.
Well, it's actually the zoning board model that the ZBA has adopted, and they're calling it theirs.
Okay.
I want to be perfectly clear who's, ruling the roost here.
Okay.
Okay, well, that takes care of things like site plan review and special permits and the like. But then we have the stormwater. And Lynn has worked very hard on trying to sort this out. The stormwater situation is different because we now have to send everything out to an engineer. We have no one in-house who can look at the plans and say this needs a stormwater permit or this doesn't need a stormwater permit. So everything that comes to us has to be reviewed by an outside consulting engineer. And of course, this means there's a fee involved for anything, whether they're actually going to submit an application or not, just to determine whether or not it needs one. And then, of course, if the application comes in with the plan, that all goes to the outside engineer who has to review it and, go through it and make sure everything's fine. If it isn't, contact the engineer, discuss the issues that, are still outstanding. And so, of course, that's more money for the engineer.
Right.
So we have to create a fee schedule for stormwater that covers all the bases. And I think that's the best way to put it, Lynn, right? And of
Yeah.
course, we know that there were many times when stormwater plans go back and forth, 2 or 3 times or more. If the engineers, if the applicant's engineer isn't, doing things quite correctly. So we have to have a way of covering the initial cost of a review, then the serious review of a plan, and then additional reviews that may come up. Now, so I think we all understand what the costs are involved. And so Lynn has sorted this all out and we've talked with Kevin about it. And so Lynn, would you like to explain what we're thinking about?
Sure. So we sent out, we had 3 engineering firms that bid. We took a look at them, and one was obviously much lower price than the other 2, and we've had experience with them because they've been working with us for the last 6 months. So it wasn't a matter of you get what you pay for. They've delivered great service, and very responsive. So now that we know what the rates are, which is the initial review is going to be $200. And as Martha said, even if the firm comes back and says they don't need stormwater, we still incur that cost of $200. So we have to find a way to cover that. Then it's $750 for the main review, which is review the plan, tell them what needs to be changed, let them send you a revised plan, review that. That's the first review. And for the very large firms that we've worked with for years, they're very good at that. In one iteration and everything is done, and that's $750. If you have an engineering firm, and we've run into a couple of those, or you have recently, where it's iteration after iteration, and they're still not coming up with a suitable plan, every new iteration is an additional $500. So initially, we would get the $950 at the time they submit the application, 200 initial review, the 750. And then if these subsequent reviews are necessary, we would get those monies before you make a decision to approve the stormwater plan, so that we're sure that we have the fees to pay the engineering company. And they would bill us monthly, would keep track of what actually, has been incurred. And so whatever we collect goes out, except for these other fees that go up by $25, give a little bit of a cushion for those initial reviews that say, no, we don't need any stormwater, but we're incurring the cost. So we have a way to cover the initial cost for anybody that has a review that doesn't end up needing to pay us anything for stormwater, plus all the costs to the engineer are covered. The only piece that's outstanding right now is how do you actually take that money in, keep it in one of our bank accounts, and then disperse it. The finance and accounting group are wrestling with that. I guess it's more complicated than it would first appear, whether you need a revolving account, whether you need to appropriate it at town meeting. They're kind of wrestling with that. But at least we have an engineering firm that we're really comfortable with. We have a fee schedule And now we just have to update the regulations to reflect those fees.
Okay, now we have our public hearing on all of these matters on October 28th with the zoning board. Now, stormwater, not all of these require a public hearing, but the stormwater regs and subdivision control changes all require a public hearing. And fee schedule changes, I some say they're required, but even if they are not required, it's a matter of transparency. That if you're changing your fees, that this should be a public process, not something that happens, behind closed doors. When we meet with the ZBA, it will be a public hearing, and we will be discussing with them, our regulations, their regulations, the fee schedule. I expect that they may have some input on some of the other things that we're talking about. And so that's up for October 28th.
So that October 28th meeting, that's where you guys would actually vote on what you're recommending. So that would be a posted meeting, a regular joint meeting, and then November 5th would be the official public hearing with residents, where you would present your recommendations, and then any input would come from residents reacting to those. So you have the 28th to actually get into the meat of this with ZBA, talk about the fees, if you think they should go up 25 or more. If there's anything else that they're looking at, they have a couple of particular things in their rules and regs that you guys don't have that they're just going to have to discuss. That's where everything gets finalized before the public hearing on 11/5.
Yeah. So we have our, public hearing for all of this on November 5th, right? And then ZBA will do their own if they need
That
it.
same night. Yeah, so you guys would go first, and because you have the bulk of it, but they would be there. It's a hearing for both of you with only one notice. So it saves us money if you both do it together. The key is, can you guys all attend the joint meeting on 10/28? Because that's not your regular meeting. That's their regular meeting. Does that work for everybody?
I'm good.
I can't do it. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Vasily and Jenny?
I can do that. It's a Tuesday, right?
It's a Tuesday, yes.
Jenny, how about you?
Yeah, it looks good for me.
Good.
Okay, great. And the 11/5 is your regular meeting anyway, so that was already on your calendar. That's no difference. The only thing that you have not yet seen, because we haven't received it yet, is from MAPC, the regulation changes for the stormwater rules and regs. And that is, you don't have much say over that. Those are state requirements that must be incorporated into our regulations. And so they're just doing the red line right now. As soon as I get those, I can send those out to everybody so that you can see what they had recommended. We had a joint meeting with, who was the group, Martha, that we met with, to make sure that they were comfortable. Also, they're going to see these regulation changes even before you guys see them, to make sure that they're completely comfortable with them. So once you approve them, we know they're not going to be bounced back by the state for not meeting the MS4 permit
Well,
requirements.
the EPA even caught up with us, and they've indicated that, well, they were very nice. They said, well, we finally gotten to the Ts, so that's why we're talking to you in Topsfield, that they've been speaking with all of the MS4 communities in Massachusetts, which is mostly eastern Massachusetts, and they're pointing out deficiencies in the rules and regulations, in some cases bylaws. Our bylaw is fine. They were pleased with our bylaw. But the regulations need to be updated. We thank them very much. We said we've been trying for 4 years to find out what we have to do to update these regulations. And so they sent the information along. Martin Tillsbury joined us in the meeting with the EPA. So now we know what we need to do, and we're doing it. And they will review it all, to make sure it's all accurate. But they're very strict is, very strict about making these rules and regulations current. Uh, And I'm very happy. We don't have to do anything with our bylaw.
Mhm.
So we don't have to go back to town meeting.
Sending- sorry.
Go right ahead, Lynn.
I was just gonna say, they're actually sending an administrative order with the date by which we have to have the regulations updated on the website. So they will be watching closely to make sure it's updated.
Well, I wonder now with the government shutdown, whether we're going to be getting that administrative order anytime soon.
I wonder, I don't know.
Because it's federal. I mean, this is, the EPA. It's not DEP.
Good point.
Anyway, but we already told them, that we had a date by which in mind, and they were happy with that. So hopefully that will go smoothly. Anything else, Lynn, on rules and regs?
I don't think so. I'm just going to, as long as now you're comfortable with the red lines, I'll update the ZBA rules and regs with those same red lines and send them over to them so that they will have them ahead of time to look at. So they have all the information that you have in time for the 10/28 meeting.
Okay. Okay, next item is zoning bylaw changes. We do have the one where we're changing scenic road special permit to permit, right? That's one that we're doing. Jenny, I sent you the Attorney General's material on the ADU bylaw. And well, they approved most of it, but there are I think 3 areas that they have problems with. So I suspect, now we have sent all of this off to KP. You were right that because we didn't say that we were, so far from a transit station, they didn't like the adding of a parking space. Did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then there are other things, I don't know. Did you have a chance to look at?
I did. Yeah. They also didn't like our definition of accessory dwelling unit.
Yeah.
And that was more to do with the definition of the trailers.
Oh, yes, they didn't like the trailers and the motorhomes being, disallowed. So KP is going over all of this, and they may, it struck me as odd. I don't know that they actually noticed that we changed the accessory building setback, so that anything over 200 square feet had to meet the standard of a house. And they seem to be saying that because we have a smaller setback for an accessory building, I mean, do they think an ADU is gonna be 200 square feet? I don't know. It's very weird. So, uh, I guess we'll get some guidance from KP, but I expect that we may have to do some revisions at town meeting to the ADU bylaw.
Mm-hmm.
Now, our town clerk said that we were not alone, that apparently they were being this difficult with all of the ADU bylaws.
Yes.
Yes, oh, okay. That's reassuring. Do we have anything else that we're actually thinking about for town meeting?
This article 4.06 for the in-ground swimming pool fence.
Oh, yes. It does turn out that the state has decided that you don't need fences around pools or something. Anyway, this,
That's not true. I sent that in an email to Lynn. It
Yeah,
doesn't,
it's still just as restrictive.
it's still just as restrictive. They don't require fencing around motorized covers for pools. It's very specific.
But I don't understand that because if you have a motorized cover, presumably you open the pool in the morning or something, that the cover is off during the day, one would assume. And then what happens if there's no protection around the pool? Do we,
No, it's the motorized pool covering has to meet a certain strength standard, and that's very specific in the regulation. But Martha, your point is quite well taken. If you just because you have it, you open up in the morning, leave it wide open, you know, your neighbor's dog, your neighbor's kid, your kid, doesn't matter.
yeah, the local deer fleeing? you know?
So the question is, could we or should we be more restrictive than the Commonwealth?
Well, I do believe we should.
Mhm.
There are a lot of swimming pools in town already that have proper fencing, and that I think new ones should be made safe. Now, the language here is sort of the old language, the old state language, if I'm not, and it's all about how the fence it, the fence has to be not climbable. That is, you can't have cutouts and handholds or footholds, and you can't have the railing of the fence on the outside of the fence. And this is all to prevent children from climbing over the fence and getting to the pool. That's what that regulation is all about. And the gates, um, the self-latching gates, are pretty standard, were pretty standard in the old regulation. And that if you have more than one gate, the rest of them have to be kept locked. That there has to have, there's a lock mechanism of some sort, so that they can't be opened. Um, and so this language may be wordy, but it's sort of out of the older language that the state had, for pool fencing.
So I sent this to everyone. This is what Martha was recommending then, to be, as you mentioned, a little more restrictive than the state.
Yes,
The
and we can be. There's no problem with doing that, and many communities do require fencing around the pools.
I have two comments on it. And the one is I'm going to give it to you, but then I'm going to retract it because I don't know if there's a better way to say it. In the sentence that talks about ornate designs or cutouts so that it is climb resistant, every time I read that, I want to put climb resistant somewhere earlier in that statement.
Okay, sure.
But it reads fine the way it is. So if other people want to take an eyeball to that. The other comment I have is in the last sentence, if the fence consists of horizontal and vertical members with mesh, and I would include something mesh, comma, link, or other covering,
Okay.
the
Okay.
members must be placed on the pool side of the fence.
That's fine. That's fine. Because people do use yard guard, they use, I use
Yes.
yard guard, they use, chain link. There are many different kinds of things. Yes. Um, if I remember correctly, climb resistant did appear earlier in the state, wherever I found this language, but it was repeated a couple of times, so I just tried to summarize it. This can be wordsmithed, whatever anyone wants, but the question is whether we do want to require fencing.
I think we should.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, I just can't imagine. I mean, you open the motorized cover and leave it open all day, you know?
um, I don't think we should make the exception. I think, and I think we should talk to Ray about that. But I just realized how to correct or maybe address my concern about the previous sentence. If we put a comma after footholds and after cutouts,
Okay,
it
so
reads-
they're just climb resistant. Yeah, okay.
that it reads better.
After footholds and cutouts.
Yes, so that such as ornate designs or cutouts becomes a prepositional phrase.
Okay. Which always needs commas on either side, Steve.
That's right.
That's what Mrs. Fabian taught me.
Okay, any other comments on this? I don't think that we're being unreasonable here. I mean,
I
the
think
state required fencing, very serious fencing, for years and years and years. And just because there are motorized covers now that can support a car or something, that still doesn't get around the fact that the motorized cover is not on the pool all the time.
could be open, right?
And it can be wide open and, again, I worry a lot about about wildlife getting in, you don't really want to be fishing a
Could still
deer up.
get in with the fence, but still, yeah, whatever you can prevent.
Exactly. Okay, do we have any other, we were talking about, the historic properties. I haven't done anything more on that, I will confess.
I haven't even looked at that either.
Was
there
one
an-
other, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Um, in Lynn's wonderful minutes, there was it reminded me that isn't there an opportunity with MAPC to help with something like that?
Yes, well, that's part of why I haven't done anything about it, that we should follow up with
Yeah.
Martin, who was going to inquire. It would be great if we could get help, some kind of technical assistance from them to do this. It'd be lovely.
What's the process for that?
We call.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll be talking with Martin anyway, and we can ask if he has followed up on it, and if he hasn't, who should we talk with?
Yeah.
Trying not to distract him at this point, Zilly, from finishing the stormwater regulations.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, someone had left, and so it's months after when they had said they would get them to you guys. So we were going to, follow up with him. He was going to talk to Josh, who was the person in charge of that. We wanted to get the stormwater regulations first and get that nailed
Okay.
down.
Yes, please.
Well, I would be in favor of once that's nailed down, seeing what the timeline and what the bandwidth would be to have them assist with this.
Mhm. Right. Well, I must say that Martin was intrigued by the concept because he said it was easily transferable to many communities that are that have historic properties, farms, estates, that sort of thing. uh,
Mhm.
And that this could be, really useful, not just for Topsfield, but that it's, something that could be used around the state.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that made it interesting. Okay. Um, okay,
And
anything else?
the slope thing, that sort of was covered. Wasn't that sort of covered in what we already have? The slope conversation. That was another one.
Right, I also haven't looked into that. I need to find out more about, building code. Um, the Massachusetts Building Code does cover slopes. There's something about slopes. And um, and I do believe that there are certain restrictions already in the building code about what can and cannot be built on a slope of a certain degree.
Mhm.
And so that is something else that needs some research.
or just a couple of
Last time we
other
brought
ones?
up- Sorry, the last time we brought up slope as a possibility, there was a lot of pushback in a couple of quarters that, oh, it would, prop people's property rights and, taking away their property rights. But uh, so we didn't follow up on anything after that. Um, anyway, I can try. It's been very busy. I haven't been
Yeah,
able-
no, I'm just following up on.
Yeah, no, it's good.
on-
Anyone wants to research slope bylaws, feel free.
Because you could also consider it as a topography, changing too much of the topography. Like, I don't know. I'm not well versed on any of this, but just listening to for example, the people that were just here about the retaining wall, I don't know. I feel like there must be good reasons
It's
to avoid building on steep slopes.
it's in Appendix J about grading. And in general,
Appendix? How do you find things so fast?
because well, I knew it was in the building code, and I'm not actually in the building code. I just did a quick search, and it seems to be in Appendix J.
Okay.
But I'll look into that while I'm looking into the retaining wall thing. But this says in general that it's permanent fill and cut slopes cannot exceed a 2-to-1 ratio or 50% grade. But that's incredibly steep.
That's very steep.
And I I would think that there must be some local codes that don't go near that. That's incredibly steep. Wait a
Yeah.
minute. Slope away from foundation, minimum 5-degree grade. Oh, that's a minimum slope of 5 degrees for draining, blah, 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 blah. I'll see what I can find out about slopes while I'm doing
But
the,
I did poke around in the building code and I did see that there were some restrictions about the height of a building that could be built on a slope of a certain, degree. But I don't have all of the details. But as I say, there was a lot of pushback the last time we talked about this, 20 years ago. People's property rights and, development rights and, what we were trying to do, so I don't know whether it would still apply. Jenny, do you know of any slope bylaws? Never heard of one?
Not off the top of my head, but I can look into it.
um, the International Building Code talks about a 33% grade, but it's just talking about requiring additional footings for anything exceeding a 33% grade.
Those are so steep. Can
That
you-
is, I can't even imagine wanting to build on that. Unless, of course, you're in an earthquake zone, then of course, go right ahead and do it. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay. Well,
Okay.
while I'm poking around in building codes, I'll see what I can find out about that as
That
well.
would be great. So are we thinking of anything else for town meeting?
There were two other things that had been brought up before. One was expanding the definition of restaurant to include limited
yeah.
restaurant components. Nobody was assigned to look at that or to make a draft of it. I don't know if someone wants to take that. There was no action item specifically.
And this came from the ZBA, didn't it? That we
Yes, because
had to do
someone
something?
had to get, actually, that for the highway garage, they had to get two permits, one for restaurant and one for limited restaurant, because the restaurant one did not include the takeout
Oh,
at a counter.
Well,
So
all
it
the
had to get-
definitions that we have are in the North American Industrial Classification System. I did go back to look at that and I realized that what we have listed are listed in that, in that system, that classification system. So if we want to alter anything, we should maybe go back and look at the NAICS code to see if they have something that accomplishes what the ZBA thinks we should be doing.
Did you know that the NAPES, due to the lapse of federal funding, portions of this website will not be updated?
Mhm.
Oh, hey,
It's a
and
rabbit hole. Be careful.
yeah, not found.
Already?
Yep.
Oh,
Okay.
all of the websites, actually. I went down the rabbit hole earlier, sorry.
You mean already the websites are
Yep.
not functioning? Well, oh well.
Right, there was that one, and then the other one was the 3 bays for a garage. Ray is asking, if the board would prefer to clarify, because there was one application that came in, and they wanna build a 40 by 72 steel garage, which is huge, to include farm equipment and cars. And that in a residential neighborhood. So he asked if you could give clarity to what 3 bay is, so he knows whether when something like that comes in, he denies it because it exceeds what you had envisioned, or he accepts it.
One question I have is what if that person had asked for a 40 by 70 barn?
That I
What?
think would be allowed, right? Like, you can I don't think there's any dimensions on the barn.
So that would not be, or that would be allowed?
We don't have any restrictions on barns, do we? Not that I'm aware of. Um,
A lot,
He's anticipating this might be more prevalent, and so to prevent trying to play catch up and say that's really not a barn. They didn't call it a barn, they called it a garage.
right.
And it's for cars and farm equipment. So, but what if they did? Can they build a whatever size steel structure in the backyard and call it a barn?
what about,
He-
how, structures that house large boats? I've seen that. I haven't seen one here in Topsfield, but I have friends who have them in other towns. Um, what is that? Is that called what is that called?
Yeah. Um,
And how do they permit that? I think, thinking similarly, I think perhaps to where Martha was going is, I don't know. I don't know that I would want to put too much of a restriction on that.
I guess because they're calling it a garage, that's what led to the question about the 3 bays, because we allow an accessory building that is a 3 bay for the storing of commercial equipment. That's in our bylaw, but we don't have anything covering barns. And I mean, people build barns, surely. I don't know that anyone has built a 40 by 70 barn. I mean, that's a huge building.
And a rectangle made out of steel,
Yeah.
a traditional barn.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on this?
What's the concern? Aesthetics.
Well, there was a party who was arguing for I don't know, huge barn to store his landscaping equipment,
Okay.
his commercial equipment. And this has been going back and forth and back and forth.
On a private residential property.
Yeah, and in a residential neighborhood, and I don't believe that he was allowed to do it. The concern has always been, and the reason that it was limited to 3 bays, was that in residential areas, there it was hoped that people wouldn't be operating large scale commercial
Mhm.
operations out of their property. So that if someone wanted to have a pickup truck or a trailer or something, for a business that he ran, that would be okay. But people didn't want big, dump trucks and backhoes and all of that kind of stuff.
Could we address that by focusing on the height of the opening versus the size of the building? Do you know what I mean? Like the way you have bridges that, you can't be taller than X number of feet? Or is that then like a problem if someone has a Thule for sport? I don't know.
No, I think it's probably better addressed, and I'm not sure we can do this by limiting what can be stored and what's considered commercial equipment. But now I'd be wrestling with, okay, farming is a by right in Topsfield. Who's not to say my equipment is not for farming? Well, the cement mixer I have in back is not for farming. I don't have a cement mixer in back, but or a road grader. I suppose someone could make the argument that it could be used for farming, but I think that's what we're trying to prevent.
Yeah.
So, is there a way to put words in that restrict the types of equipment that can be stored in these garages?
Then who is that I like that idea, but who is that our purview? Who oversees that?
I don't know. I mean,
Well, the problem is monitoring it and enforcing it, that, so how does
Like-
that happen? The alternative, of course, what Ray was looking for was the dimensional standards, that each bay can be X by X.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I am thinking of Martha. My barn that was expanded in the 40s, which has 3 or 4 bays, car bays in it. And
Filled with cement mixers.
Yeah, the cement mixer in the
they're in
road.
parts though.
Yeah.
Um,
So how
no,
big
I'm
are the
just
bays?
wondering because I have 2 tractors, and I'm hoping to get at least 2 of those bays cleared out so I can put my tractors in there. But I wouldn't subject my neighbors to a cement mixer, a full scale cement mixer. I might subject them to an excavator if I had one. So, and I would like to store that in a barn, and I could certainly use that in maintaining a farm property. So it's a really good question. And Ray's looking for dimensions.
He thought that defining the dimensions for for each bay, that is a garage bay that is, certain dimensions, that would give him the control over the size of the building.
So
Mhm.
So that was his suggestion.
yeah, and I think he's on the right track. But now I'm thinking, if I'm devil's advocate, what if you have one of those sprinter type vans that's almost 12 feet tall?
Mhm.
I know that actually Jody and I talked about someday maybe purchasing one to support her antique business. So, and again, any kind of vehicle like that, I'd like to store it inside. So I'm not going to put a height restriction,
Yeah.
or I would not like to see a height restriction that would prevent that sort of vehicle.
Mhm.
And I'm having a hard time coming up with anything, a commercial cement mixer certainly is going to be taller than that. A large farm combine is certainly going to be taller than that. But gosh golly gee, if someone wanted to buy a commercial combine to do harvesting here in Topsfield, we can't prevent them from doing that.
Nope.
And can we therefore prevent them from storing it in a way that would maintain their equipment? I think not. So
Well,
this is really, really difficult.
Well, the question is whether, I think the 40 by 70 garage to store whatever they're going to store. I think I would like to know whether if they had called it a barn, would it have been allowed? Right? I mean, because if we're, so how do we say, no, you can't build a 40 by 70 garage to put your farm equipment in, but you can build a 40 by 70 barn to put your equipment in.
And then it's a matter of splitting hairs. I mean, and I have a personal issue with that because that's just reeks of bureaucracy. It's like it's this, and but I'm not suggesting that's a bad idea. But boy, if I was an applicant, I'm calling it, you I'm calling it blonde, and someone else is calling it bleached.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
still light in color.
Well,
So
40 by 70 is a very, very large building.
it
My home,
is.
which is massive, is 60 by 72. So it's approaching the size of my barn, which is huge.
Yeah, no, and it is. Is there something we can do to dimensional requirements for the this is in the, I'm assuming it's in the ORA
I have no idea.
where it is?
I have no idea. And I'm puzzled as to whether there's a property that's being farmed in the ORA that, or anywhere, that needs a 40 by 70 barn for the agricultural equipment. I mean, it just,
Agreed.
I'm not quite sure of the, I don't know the whole background on this application. So I, I was just puzzled as to why would you need anything that huge?
I think, well, didn't Greg you bring up, hey, maybe he's collecting automobiles.
Right, right. Yeah, and I was going to say that I think that for personal collections and recreational activities, I mean, I don't think we should be putting restrictions on, obviously on the farming side. And my daughter's boyfriend's family, it's not a big farm. It's like 200 acres in South Carolina. And I can't, I think they have almost 10,000 square feet of barns and storage. And why? Because he just loves having farm equipment, and farm equipment is very big, and and he just loves it. And so it's kind of ridiculous, but it's, people kind of, it's a big hobby for them. So I mean, but getting back to the point, it seems that if someone's going to be conducting a commercial enterprise or for storage with commercial vehicles that are not farm related, and not personal collections, it seems like that's really where they're getting over that line. That
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe it's only 1/3 of the space can be used for commercial purposes, and 2/3 has to be for personal or agriculture.
Right? That's,
I guess it's hard because I mean, back to this person, like if they're asking, they might need 3 or 4 cars for their personal, just a regular vehicles, and then have the other bay for their commercial. It doesn't, having those bays doesn't mean they're going to fill every single bay with gigantic commercial vehicles. So I think that's where I kind of started with what's the concern, because I don't really see any point in restricting anybody on this type of use unless there's a real concern. Like, and if the concern is the neighbors, I guess I'm just curious then, like, there's got to be, if you're using it for commercial vehicles and have like more than 2, you wouldn't keep those at home at that point, because then you have a staff and you probably have a whole business. I don't know. I just don't anticipate this being a big issue for,
yeah. Well,
I don't
remember that
see the
personal
problem.
vehicles, most of the garages are attached, that, for a person's personal vehicle, a 2-car garage, and there are 3-car garages that are attached to the house. I
Right.
think this accessory use, was specifically for a separate building that would
Yeah.
be used to house no more than 3 commercial vehicles. And so,
Okay.
okay, that's the
Okay.
you know,
So it would be sort of in addition to your residential garage? Like
and so that, and there
Is that
is,
the idea? Okay. No,
I
that's helpful for me to understand.
I can think of a
Martha,
place.
where is that in the bylaw, this particular language? Do you know?
About running a commercial operation?
Well, 3 bays, the language that
Oh.
says 3 bays, is that in the use?
Say 3 bays, it says a garage, an accessory garage for 3 commercial vehicles.
Okay.
Is that in the use table?
Yeah, it's under accessory uses.
Okay. So that does make a difference. So in that situation, like you could have a 2-bay garage for your personal use and then an accessory garage.
Well, I
With-
think I know of one property over on River Road that has a garage attached to the house. And then at a certain point, a previous owner built another building down behind the house.
Mhm.
It had 3 bays, and that it was, they called it a warehouse or they called it a, something, but it was for commercial vehicles,
Mhm.
for his business. So this applies only to those separate structures.
Mhm.
And the whole, as I've said before, the whole intent was to see to it that people say,
Thanks.
6.04.
So Zilla, to your point about what was raised concern, he needs to know whether or not to send it to the ZBA for a special permit. It says that anything more than 3 needs a special permit. And so
I
he
see.
said, what is the definition of 3?
But you
I
need a
see.
special permit for for 3 commercial vehicles. I mean, if they want to go to the ZBA and say, here, I want to build an accessory private garage that's 40 by 72, then that would be up to the ZBA to determine whether it meets this definition.
And then that's Ray's question. He said it could be 3 enormous bays that this building is. And so he's like, if it's 72, I think is the length, and you split that into 3, could it possibly be 3 bays, or is this absolutely more than 3 bays? What's the definition of a bay? He just needs to
There's
know
no
if he needs to prove it or send it over to the ZBA.
I would send it to the ZBA, but there's nothing about bays. It's about a building that can contain no more than 3 commercial vehicles,
Vehicles.
except a farm, then a
Yeah,
farm.
that makes a big difference.
So, and then it's just a matter of enforcement, and then it would be up to neighbors to say, hey, Steve Hall's got a fleet of 8 cement mixers that are constantly going in and out.
Yeah.
Um,
And when he assembles them, it's even so loud.
Yeah, yeah.
but I am collecting them. I mean, this is I'm a little fascinated with cement mixers because I heard that 1950s tune, Cement Mixer. You know that one? Cement mixer, body body, cement. You don't know that?
Sorry.
Mm-mm,
Okay, never
mm-mm.
mind.
But I'm so
Sorry.
happy that this is recorded.
Okay, but again, to get to the point here, the
Sorry.
building that gets a special permit is a building that can hold no more than 3 commercial vehicles,
Vehicles.
except if it's a farm. And then, there are no rules about that. So I
Okay,
think,
they're not a farm. They're not a farm. They have a lot of land. So they're not a farm. So it will probably end up with 6 bays in it, let's say. And to your point, there's no monitoring this unless a neighbor complains. And then once the neighbor complains, what do you have them take it down?
No,
But if they need a special permit, there'll be a public hearing, right? Is that correct?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I
he sends
know,
it.
I'm a
So
little
there's an
puzzled.
opportunity to find out from them what their intent is.
Yes, they should just go to the ZBA and present their plan, and the ZBA should say, okay, you can have no more than 3. This can be for no more than 3 commercial vehicles. And so what are you gonna do with the 40 by 72?
Yeah.
I mean, I
They'll
think
probably
And
say it's regular cars and farm equipment, it's nothing commercial. And
small
then there's no
Cessna
permit.
airplane.
I have I appreciate you sharing that then, though, Lynn, because I think just the fact that it says 3 commercial vehicles, it does not say 3-bay garage.
Right.
Like, to me, it makes all the difference. So I
Yes.
think if they have, I think that they'll have to go for a special permit anyway, that's, I don't think,
And I don't understand where the bays entered the conversation. I mean,
I'm not sure. That's what Ray kept referring to.
you know, Ray kept talking about
interpretation.
bays, and uh, I mean, it can have one entrance, and they can pull in 3 commercial vehicles. I mean, this is bay.
You're
Oop, she
fro-
froze.
Oh, I think Martha, you froze up there. But I think the gist here is that we don't see anything about bays. It-
They were
it-
also not saying they want any commercial vehicles. So
Then
if
they
they
can have
are
it.
asking for 0, does it need to go for a special permit?
Oh, they're saying no special, they're not asking for any commercial.
If it's attached to the
equipment.
house, if it's attached to
And
the house, they can add garage, they can add, you know, garages to the house. But now this is an accessory building, and the question is, you know, what is it? You
Can
know?
you show again the screen share you just did, Lynn?
yeah, let me just pull it up again.
All
Yeah,
right.
so their application, let's see. It's already up, so I'm gonna share. Their application didn't have any commercial. It just, they said cars and farm equipment.
Mm-hmm. So that looks to me like 6.02. Right?
Article 6,
02. I don't know. I don't know what
And
Article
and
6 is.
04 depends on, you have to go down to Article 4 or go back up to Article 4. Make sure that it's allowed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's, if they're not doing any commercial vehicles, I think it's up to the ZBA to just ask them that, because then they don't, as long as it fits within the dimensional requirements, you can
So
have a
the
dozen
question
days.
is, your application doesn't say you're having more than 3 commercial vehicles. On what is Ray hanging his hat to say you have to go to the ZBA? They're like, I'm not having any commercial vehicles. I'm having cars and I'm having farm equipment. So I'm not violating this. I don't need a special permit. No commercial vehicles.
Correct.
And that's where he was like, can I just get clarity as to what this is supposed to intend? Because he didn't know whether to send it over.
6.02 is an accessory building. There were no, you know, subject to Article 6. That's the floodplain.
Oh, okay.
That's
So
what,
that's, sorry, my bad.
yeah, so you can put up an accessory building or other structure as long as you're following our floodplain rules.
Yeah, and if he's just storing accessory uses a continuous owner to one unregistered motor vehicle, trailer, boat, or motorized home in the open, not within a required setback. And it doesn't sound like they need any kind of a permit other than as long as it meets the dimensional setbacks.
Or is it 6.06, which is also needing a special permit, accessory outside storage necessary for operation of principal use? Your principal use is the home and your property? Is it that one?
They're trying
No,
to
the
sell the
outside
building so
storage
that
is
it's
what?
inside.
Outside storage is what you see down in the shopping center where Dawson's has all of the
Oh,
piles
okay.
in the shopping center.
I wouldn't be opposed to them getting
Yeah, that they shouldn't.
structure.
And
For
I'll
the-
tell you, storage of unregistered motor vehicles, trailers and all of that, um, not with any within any required setback. I mean, there are lots of trailers and RVs and who knows, all over the place.
Sure.
That are clearly within setbacks, but that's
So what would a barn be?
I would guess that
Up
a
above,
barn
it's
would
the
be
6.03.
6.02.
No, it's 6.03.
Keeping of domestic animals, agricultural. Okay.
Yeah, or
Well, I'm also
I would
thinking for
sorry.
future owners, like you could make the case that could you fit, if you're trying to build something that could hypothetically fit more than 3 commercial vehicles, then it should require a special permit because future use, like future owners.
that's right.
But I cut Jenny off, I think.
I
Jen.
just was saying, I would ask Ray exactly, precisely like what he's looking for and ask him to be more precise with the language. But I'm guessing that if they're not looking to store commercial vehicles, he's really asking us, can somebody have an accessory private garage for private vehicles? Whereas the fact that it's not listed here at all means it's not permitted. Because these are either permitted by special permit or permitted by right.
It sounded from, again, Lynn's wonderful minutes from last time, not my wonderful memory. Like the concern was, his concern was about like heavy, I actually have it here. So earth moving equipment in a resident zone. So they're saying that they're not asking for that, but that seems to be Ray's concern. So I don't know if it's because he sees something that they haven't written in their application or it's a concern for future use
Yeah,
potential.
I guess what I'm saying is that for us, our jurisdiction is rewriting bylaws to make it more clear.
Yeah.
And so he should be telling us what in the bylaw is not clear to his question. If he's
Okay.
asking for help interpreting the bylaw,
Yeah.
that's probably more of a zoning board question and a town council question.
His question, I think
Good point,
now, at
Jenny.
the latest is size. In his mind, he had 3 bays. He was trying to figure out, I don't know why it was bays, but
Right, but that's not what
how
the
big,
bylaw says. So
it's not what it says, but how big can this animal get? Did you have any intention to restrict the size of what this parking garage for cars or equipment or whatever, how big that could get? This seems very big to him. And so he was just asking, do you want to make it clearer so that people know it can't go beyond a certain size or can't house a certain number of vehicles, or do you not care? In which case, he just needs to know when to send it to the ZBA. And right now he's hearing there's no commercial vehicles. So right now he doesn't need to send them. But to Zillie's point, the next person coming in could put in 4 commercial vehicles if it's large enough. So it's a size issue, I think, with him.
So
We've
he
seen
wanted
enough
the
time-
definition of the size that could fit 3 commercial vehicles. Or
Yeah, I
did he
think
just assume this appears like it could, so therefore you need a special permit.
yeah.
yeah, I mean, it feels more like a hypothetical question at this point if it's not actually addressing an issue at hand.
When
To be harsh.
we look at all of this, the accessory buildings are taken up, as we know, in later in the bylaw, but we don't actually have clarity as to the uses of accessory buildings. I think that's part of the issue here.
Mhm.
An accessory building or other structure subject to provisions of the floodplain, all that means is that I guess accessory buildings and other structures are allowed as long as they're not happening in the floodplain. Right?
Yeah, and it seems that we need to, or if we want to clarify this, we need to talk about what a garage is and what is stored in it. Because even the language in 6.04, accessory private garage for not more than 3 commercial vehicles requires a special permit. What if I have more than, the way this is written, could I have more than 3 and not need a special permit?
No.
No.
I mean, I think this is trying to limit
Okay.
how much you can use your private residential home for commercial purposes without needing a zoning change.
Accessory private garage.
For not more, I mean, so, I think somebody in the past probably thought, okay, if you have more than 3 commercial vehicles in here, then really you're just running your business out of your home.
Okay, maybe this is again a question of some missing commas here. So an accessory private garage requires a special permit except on farms
Right.
or for not more than 3 commercial vehicles.
Yeah, it reads that you need the special permit, period. But it can't be for more than 3 commercial vehicles. That's a not allowed use. So it's gotta go to the ZBA to get up to 3, and after that, there's nothing they can do. You can't have more than 3.
Right. I think there are 2 missing commas here, but accessory private garage requires a special permit except on a farm. If I want to put a garage on my farm, I don't need a special permit. That's the way
Or
I
is
read
it
that.
related to the commercial vehicles?
Yeah, I don't have commercial vehicles, but I have lots of farm gear.
So 6.02 is rather vague. It's just an accessory building or other structure. And then, of course, subject to the floodplain, meaning that you can have it, only not in a floodplain.
Yeah, so potting shed, backyard shed,
The only restrictions
pancake, she shed.
are in 4.06, which is that they can't occupy more than a certain percent of the rear yard. If we look at that, so I don't know how that applies. And then I don't, 6.03 talks about normally incidental to residential use. Well, how is that different from the accessory building or other structure? 6.03, okay, you can keep animals, that
Mhm.
you can have a barn, you can, do agricultural and horticultural things. But why does 6.02 not cover that?
Then why does 6.04 prevent an accessory garage? You can have an accessory building, you can have an accessory building incidental to residential use, but you can't have a garage without getting a special permit?
The
Right, so
garage, I think,
that's
is
for commercial vehicles. You see, the other two are just anything you want to do with the buildings, you know, would be allowed.
yeah, think garden shed, pool house,
Right. A barn.
or barn in case of 6.03.
Right.
Oversized dog house.
Yeah. But you see, Jenny, is this making any sense?
Eh,
No.
I, st- I I don't know.
The
I still don't
6.04
exactly.
says you absolutely need it for an accessory private garage. You need a special permit, period.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna be for more than 3 commercial vehicles, but regardless, you need to go get a special permit for a private garage,
For a private garage.
for commercial vehicles.
Well, I believe that this is an example of the sedimentary nature of our bylaws. That is, the first round said you can have any accessory building or structure, you just can't put it in the floodplain. And then the second one arose because someone wanted to know, well, what kind of activities can you conduct in said accessory building? So someone wrote 6.03. And then someone complained about commercial vehicles being on, in residential areas. So someone wrote accessory private garage, wrote 6.04. A lot of our bylaws have kind of evolved this way, and each one had a particular intent,
Mhm.
particular purpose. So we can either say, okay, go ask the CBA about the 40 by 70 building and see what they say. Or do we really want to tackle what this is all supposed to mean? Because it, 6.02 and 6.03 is here, seem to be saying the same thing. Aren't they?
Yes, I agree.
And 6.04 was designed specifically to not allow a lot of commercial vehicles.
A lot of commercial vehicles, yeah.
That one even caused confusion among board members, whether or not you needed a special permit if you're going over 3, or whether you need it just to have any on the property.
I'm not seeing a
Oh,
lot.
yeah. Yeah, no, I think you probably need a special permit for that accessory garage. That's interesting.
For any accessory garage?
For commercial
not
vehicles.
commercial?
Commercial vehicles.
But you can't have it for more than 3 vehicles.
Right.
Unless it's on a farm. I think that's what it's meant to be.
Wait, sorry, I think I missed it. So
So-
like when it says accessory private garage, full stop, any accessory private garage requires.
So you may have an accessory private garage by special permit in these zones, or permitted in the
Commercial.
business, whatever,
For commercial vehicles.
for commercial vehicles. Then you can't have more than 3 commercial vehicles in that garage.
But if I wanted to do an accessory private garage for not commercial vehicles, does this suggest you need a special permit either way?
I would assume that would be up in 6.02,
Okay.
an accessory building or other structure
Right.
subject to the
Okay,
floodplain.
so that we're back to the root question of which category does this fall under?
What is the question from the building inspector?
Yeah.
What's the confusion?
General confusion about
Yeah.
what needs special permit. He has difficulty reading this, which I think from your discussion and Martha's explanation of how it evolved, it does,
Yeah.
it's a little confusing as to which category you might fit into.
It seems like the applicant has said no commercial vehicles. And so I think it clearly then goes under 6.02.
Unless the next owner comes in with commercial vehicles and fills up this massive structure in the backyard.
Well, but that owner is still subject to the bylaws. Do we have somewhere else in the bylaw that says you can't park more than 3 commercial vehicles within a residential lot?
No, the bylaws run 2 uses, that certainly you can have an active commercial use in a resident
Right.
zone. But
Right.
there's,
So just like you couldn't convert a house to an active commercial use.
So in theory, if everyone's playing ball, a new owner wouldn't try to, stick his 3, 4, 5 cement mixers into that building.
Right. And then
And
you'd probably
then,
rely on neighbors to complain, and then there'd be an enforcement order.
and then there would be an enforcement, right? That's what I'm thinking.
You couldn't stick 1 in there unless he had the special permit.
Correct. I think so.
Correct.
Mm,
Correct.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
okay, I think, this requires a little more thought,
Mhm.
that, I know Ray is, so concerned about dimensions that this will give him, this 3 commercial vehicles thing. But I'm kind of looking at all of this and maybe we should try to clarify 6.02, 03, and 04.
I see commas.
I don't know. I mean, it's complicated.
I mean, probably if you went back to the whatever town meeting
Mhm.
these were adopted, there should be some sort of description in the warrant about what it is the town was hoping to accomplish with it.
These may go back to, I think it was 1972.
Well, then maybe not.
They they rewrote the entire zoning bylaw. and they retained pieces of the original bylaw. And then they added other pieces. So they refined the entire zoning bylaw. And so there are these sort of vestigial pieces that carried over from the 50s and the 60s, and then it got so convoluted that they decided they had to completely redo the zoning bylaw. And so that's what happened in 1972. But periodically, you'll find things that sort of really? Do we really do that? And I have been told that some of these oddities are remainders out of
Mhm.
much earlier bylaws. So there may have been 6.02 may have been in the original bylaw. And then when they redid it, they may have added 6.03 because they wanted to talk about, that those accessory uses should be only incidental, to residential uses. And 6.02 talks about buildings, 6.03 talks about uses.
Mm.
And then for Business Highway North, the structure is not permitted, but the uses are.
Right.
Which I don't know how you have a use if you don't have the building to start with.
Well, this also, yeah, well, you're quite right about that. But
Ooh,
anyway,
good catch. Yeah.
and I think 6.03 may have arisen as a result of people complaining about people having livestock in their backyard. And the bylaw was designed to protect um, the keeping of domestic animals and agricultural activities. Kind of an early right to farm type bylaw,
Mhm.
you know. I'm sorry, this is the historian in me that I start trying to figure out how these things developed and evolved, and I'm guessing that that's what happened. And the 6.04 turned up because people said, no, we don't want more than 3 commercial vehicles. So you can't have a garage for more than 3 commercial vehicles. Now, this problem, by the way, exists uh, maybe once every few years. That this is not an overwhelming municipal problem, from what I can tell. That periodically someone wants to build something.
Mm.
So do we want to do anything for these occasions? These infrequent requests?
I'm thinking no, because I'm not, aside from maybe combining 6.02 and 6.03, unless we're getting a strong indication from Ray or from ZBA that they want to section out commercial operation, commercial uses, but we already do that. So
Okay, how about this? Lynn, maybe you can ask the ZBA what their thoughts are on this.
Okay.
Okay, and see how they interpret these.
And I would say in that question, like when you asked if we would do anything, when one of you just pointed out the distinction of like one talks about building, one talks about uses, like maybe that's the distinction that needs to be made for 604.
right.
That it's really about the use and less about the building.
Yeah, well, 6.03, clearly in the fact that they include keeping of domestic animals, agricultural and horticultural uses. This was to protect people who were doing these things, and then others were complaining about it and saying that they shouldn't be keeping a goat in the backyard or whatever, or a doghouse or something. So anyway, just my thought. Okay, let's ask the CBA what they think about it. And then we have one more thing, and that is the minutes. Anyone?
As I printed them out, I will make a motion to approve the minutes
Oh,
from whatever date that was that we last met,
September 3rd.
September 1st, 3rd.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Wonderful. All in favor? Steve,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Jenny,
Aye.
Silly?
Aye.
Aye. Wonderful. Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So
Thank
moved.
you all, by the way, for being here tonight.
Second.
Good discussion. All in favor? Steve,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Jenny,
Aye.
Silly?
Aye.
I vote aye.
Thank you.
all. Good night.